What is going on, guys? Another breakdown for UFC 270. One of the more exciting fights on the card, which isn't saying a lot, but we got Michael Morales taking on Trevin Giles. For Morales, would be his UFC debut after fighting on the Contender Series. He's going to have a 5-inch reach advantage, but they're the same height. So I'll start with Morales. Coming off a very solid performance against Nikolai Veretetnikov, and I would say Veretetnikov won the first round. He's a good prospect himself. King's MMA just needs a little bit more polish, I think. But yeah, he won the first round. He was walking him down. He could have had a little bit more volume, but he banks the first round. And then in the second round, Morales gets a beautiful body lock takedown. It was just pure strength. Ends up controlling much of that round, lands some heavy ground and pound. Then in the third round, Veretetnikov takes him down again, and he has him in side mount, and he's just landing knees to the body. It looked really bad. Looked like he was going to steal the third round and steal the fight, but then Morales gets a great reversal, gets back to his feet, ends the fight doing some chipping ground and pound, and gets the decision win. Now he's here. On the regional scene, a lot of knockouts, but he does have a good ground game himself. He's got at least 1 or 2 submission wins, and he's got good takedown game. He's got long limbs for the division. He's still 22, so it's worth keeping in mind. He's still got some development to do. But what I really like about his game, he's got excellent footwork, great head movement, and just all-around good defense. He doesn't always move all the time. He's not one of those guys who's super shifty. Sometimes he will stay still, but his head movement is really good. He gets out of the way of shots very effectively. His counter-striking game it's not great. He's got good counter-striking. He looks like a guy that would have great counter-striking, though. He's got the tools for it, and I'm sure he will develop it as his career goes on, because, again, he's still only 22. But, yeah, the footwork really stands out to me. He's got a really good jab, just good boxing fundamentals altogether. Seems like sometimes he takes a round to download information. This would happen against Veretetnikov, and I've seen in a couple of those other fights where he takes, a round to really get the timing down. But he does have a lot of first-round finishes himself. And a couple of them, I watched them. They were could have been stopped earlier. So yeah, perfect 12-0 record. But the level of competition is definitely going to go to Trevin Giles. He's got a lot of solid wins in his career, including outside the UFC. He's got a win over Ike Villanueva. Outside the UFC, beat Ryan Spann at LFA 3. Antonio Braganetto has got a W. James Krause took that one on short notice, early 2020. Before that was happening all the time. I remember everybody was like, oh man, James Krause taking the fight on a day's notice, including myself. But now that shit happens all the time because of COVID, and pretty much what James Krause does these days, he'll step in only if one of his guys is out and he's got to take the fight on short notice. But that was a fun fight. Krause had him in a lot of trouble in the first round, but Giles showed off pretty underrated part of his game. He's got very good defensive grappling. He's good at getting reversals. He's got good submission defense, and he's pretty strong when he is able to reverse position. He's a BJJ brown belt, so it's an underrated part of his game for sure. He is susceptible to takedowns, and it does seem to really wear on his cardio if he does have to grapple for an extended period, but it is pretty good, and it was good in that one. He got out of really good backpack submission choke at first, and then Krause had the body lock for much of the first round, and he was fishing for a rear naked choke, chipping ground and pound, but Giles somehow was able to reverse that position and end up winning the round on the ground. Just lots of ground and pound, almost got him out of there. But what I don't like about that fight is he faded hard, and he shouldn't have. It's a short notice opponent. Guy usually fights at welterweight. I thought that Giles looked a little sloppy in that fight, and the decision easily could have gone to Krause for sure. I would have given Krause round 1, and Krause, very strong argument for round 3. Giles landing the heavier shots, but he was labored, and Krause was landing a lot heavier. But that's another thing I don't like about Giles. He throws some really labored 1-2 sometimes, especially when he's tired. But on the plus side, he's got very good power. Again, he does look for the 1-2 a lot. That's his primary weapon. He could afford to mix it up, but when he does land, he's got a lot of power, and he's a guy that picks his spots too. But he did have a nice 3-fight winning streak going. Capped it off with a win over Roman Dolidze. And against Dricus du Plessis, step up in competition for sure. I think he's solid. Former KSW champion. But du Plessis, he lands a nice combination against him, really heavy. It was a 1-2 and then a heavy leg kick to cap it off. heaviest exchange of the fight on either side, and then Duplessis just counter right knocks him out cold. So it was pretty shitty, but again, just not a lot of output in that fight from Giles. He's not a high output guy, but he does have a lot of power. He's coming down to 170, and he was kind of small at middleweight, so this weight class switch really might be beneficial for him. But it's always tricky when you're moving down a weight class for the first time. It should be noted, but yeah, Giles definitely has the edge in power, the edge in competition. I don't think Morales is really going to be able to get the ground game going. It's good ground game, but I don't think. Maybe he will try to sap Giles' cardio, but Giles is not a slouch on the ground by any stretch. But yeah, level of competition, Giles, power, Giles, grappling about even, and volume and footwork and overall defense, I would go to Morales. And so for this fight, it's a close line, and it seems to be money coming in on Trevin Giles just a little bit, and so we'll see if that trend holds. But on FanDuel, we got Michael Morales at -142 and Trevin Giles at +116. And I'll say this is a really tough one to pick. I really wanted to pick Giles at first because you're trying to fade the Contender Series guy coming up. Morales has a good record against guys with good records themselves. It's just like he lacks like the big names on his resume so far, whereas Giles has beaten some big names at all levels of his career. But ultimately for this one, I just like Morales' speed and footwork more, and I don't think Giles has a lot of volume. So I just see Morales, even though I think he has a little bit of an output issue himself. Like he could stand to let the hands go a little bit more sometimes because he's got good technique. But I just think that his output will be more than Giles' output, and this could be a fight where there's just a lot of stalking, a lot of feints. Giles trying to set up the perfect 1-2, while Morales just stays on his bike, lands some nice jabs, body shots, and just wins the fight with output. But at +116, I couldn't at all hate on picking Trevin Giles in this spot. I strongly considered it. You do have the plus odds. You would be going against a Contender Series guy making his debut against a veteran who has multiple UFC wins. It's always hard to pass that up. So as much as I want to bet Morales because I like his technical skill more, and I just see it playing well against a low output, not super fast guy in Giles, but yeah, I want to make it top ticket, but it's tough to do that. So thanks for watching, guys. Sure, subscribe and take it easy.